Good, good evening, good evening, good evening. It is August 9th, 2026 at 10, more or less 10:30. And I guess the last time I was here was when I came back from Maryland. And so I guess it's been about maybe a week and a half or so. And everything's been pretty chill. Um, I did go out of town for work, and I really I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm in such a remote situation that it's just getting the energy from the people is is a thing that I enjoy. There are definitely advantages to being in person in professional spaces because there's something that you gain being in person that you don't gain doing it remotely. You can get it done functionally remotely, but there's the iron sharpens iron, and so that's where the connections part comes in. Um, but if I mean, really, I feel like hybrid. I feel like hybrid probably would work because it's really about the conditions and the care for one's well-being, recognizing that they are a person and not just a cog in a system. But nevertheless, so yeah, I really enjoy going out there. And so we had a lot of really good conversations surrounding AI and just understanding where we are when it comes to AI implementation in a way that allows us to continue to scale and grow our business at the pace that everything in technology is transitioning into. And so I have to figure out how, as our development is speeding up when it comes to AI, from a QA standpoint, how to make sure that we have a framework and a system and structure so that we can keep up with their development at the speed and at the rate at the developers will be developing the software for us to test. So that's the next mission. And I'm gonna have to use a lot more AI to get it. And so the looking at where I am today in using AI, which is still in a lot of ways a early stage. But looking at where I am now compared to where I was, mm, a year ago, maybe a year ago. And so, I'll say I've watched, I've kind of watched this AI thing move pretty early, and I still was a slow adopter. And it's so fascinating. So I'll say that my regular usage was primarily just Gemini because like Siri wasn't really it. I mean, you could technically say that the Siri slash Samsung, and then the OK Google situation. I'm not talking to you. Um, Appreciate it. But since those things were just kind of like on their phones, it could kind of do some stuff. But then what we have now, it was pretty much just Gemini because that was the easiest thing to do. It's already on my phone. I can just use it, and I pretty much use it as a just like an advanced Google search. I just really just used it to ask it questions to find stuff, help me figure out. I think it was like I don't know weights. Um, yeah, the weights that I was looking for. That was probably like the first product that I was focusing on having AI help me with. So I used there was a couple different ones. I think Will I Am had one, has one. And so I was using that and Gemini to kind of test them out back and forth. And that was mostly what it was. I would see something, I would ask it about it, or I would just have thoughts and just start asking things. And at some point, I think once I recognized that AI was going to be where we're going, and I believe it may have been around the holiday party for work, something like that. And she said, I think I knew that that we was getting into AI, and so I just started asking it questions. Like what do you know about me based on what I just said here? And it just let me know that it didn't know nothing. And it's not necessarily storing the information, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's here. And I know that in order for me to get to where I need to go, what the company that I work for, I got to figure it out. But I didn't know how to figure it out for work because I didn't even really understand how it worked, and I did not really listen to what people were saying on how it worked. I was like, I don't know how I feel about it in the way that they're talking about it. So it was mostly that. And once I was asking it questions and I started gaining a better understanding of how it operated, I don't know, it broke a mental barrier by fully understanding what it was and understanding how I can use it and still do what I wanted to do because I didn't want it to take over the work that I did. I wanted to use it as a thought partner. I wanted to just be able to get questions, have thoughts, and allow it to work with me so we can do what we need to get done together. Not I have it do all of my work for me because I feel like that would be boring. So, but just in having dialogue more or less with it, I got to understand what it was and what it wasn't. And once I got there, I was like, all right, well, let me just start working on figuring this thing out. And I think it was after around the time where I was saying, okay, I, I wanted to potentially look at taking a break from edibles. And then I went through my own spiritual awakening process after I had my QHHC hypnosis session. And then I'm just essentially have let uh, I am essentially just updating it on things within life. There was one that came out with this spiritual streaming platform called Gaia. Robert Edward Grant had his architect in that, and so I started using that just to kind of to understand because it's supposed to reflect back the mirror of your higher self with a lot of deep context and other stuff. And I'm like, all right, we'll see. But there was a there was a pathway I wanted to go to. You allow that to create like a, not a schedule, but a phase for my spiritual growth based on where I was and everything else I was listening to that was all already connected. And I really just started to build from there. At the end of the day, I believed I wanted to have something that I wanted to create something that knew how I functioned, how I thought, what the context of me is, so that as I start to make more decisions and I may need some help or some structure in putting certain things together, that it will know or understand why I am making the choices that I'm making, so that I can still navigate, even if I don't necessarily have individuals around at the times. And so, essentially, creating the second and third brain. And so now I use Claude and Gemini and this new one named Aisha, um, which focuses their base responses from the African American culture, which I think is really cool. So that's kind of well, I guess I'll say, and the way that I was able to get Claude and Gemini to understand me enough is I actually wrote it ended up being about 500-page document going back from age 4 to 44 and documenting my journey of my life and the decisions that I made with as much bias, I mean, as as unbiased as possible, looking at it in this way from a more or less healed space, and just throw out the the various events and the environment and the people that helped cultivate and create how I've become to be out here. And by doing that, it picked up on various themes and patterns throughout the course of my life. I already knew that most of them because I've been going through my own healing, but there were patterns that it was able to name and reference and understand. And once I got a better understanding of those things, it helped me to unravel the thread of the trauma and then start cutting away at it while I am still going through therapy. I'm still going through therapy. And so while I'm doing these things throughout the course of the week, I come back in these therapy sessions a little better, a little better, a little better, a little better, a little better. And by using Claude and Gemini so much, I would provide a prompt on one side, provide the same prompt to the other side, see what they say. And I would say, tell Claude what Gemini said, and I tell Gemini what Claude said, and I just had them kind of go back and forth to where they both have lined out pretty much how I am and how I operate. Um, and as best and as close to a document as possible. And so by using them so much, that further helped translate it for me at work. And now I've just been able to kind of build a system esque on how to get a project up to speed on how to operate with me and still do what we needed to do. So I've got essentially having Mike, a Mike Brown thesis. Um, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So long-winded way of how I got here, but how I got here with AI. But I feel like it'll probably be a significant point in time. So that's kind of why we did it. But yeah, everything has been fantastic. Life is life continues to get better. Oh, I did have a message. I did have a message. I did have a message that came to me yesterday as I was walking. No, maybe not yesterday, the day before. I don't remember. But basically, I'm walking, and as I'm walking, doing my walk, I get this message that I'm closer to the version of me that I've been seeing than I probably think I am. And that this version of where I'm at is the closest ever to understanding that destined path, that goal, where before my higher self had to keep nudging and pushing and digging into me almost for me to understand the gravity of what my life is turning to be. But every time I've listened, every time I've listened, my life has gone exactly the way that I've wanted it to go, and it's continued to go up, continued to rise. So ain't no point in stopping that process now. So look, this time it was a lot more gentle. It's like, hey, you are almost there. You can lock in and get it faster, or take your time and kind of get it within the time frame that we've have told you that these things are going to take place. And so it's up to me to act in the present, to connect and align with that vision of with that version of now, which is future. But I see it's not even a large jump from where I am now. And so I can see it. There's just a few things that I gotta connect or turn back on or start back over with. But I see it, and I see it a little clearer every day. I see it a little clearer every day. So that's what this whole video series is really about. Just watching my transition, watching my growth go from the moment I decided that I was going to start getting a little more comfortable and start documenting how this journey and how this process goes. And I'm watching as everything, even things that was told to me earlier, my higher self, I'm already seeing them connect. So there is something every month. There is something one day of significance, a minimum every month. We're about to rock with it.